and welcome to History of Heroes. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Chris.
Today we're going straight to the Flashpoint.
Intro!
Woo!
Got this!
Okay, so, Chris.
Now, as my co-host Tyler mentioned, we're going to be talking about the Flash today. Tyler, if you could be so kind as to give us an intro as to where the Flash started.
Sure. So, Flash was first seen in October of 1956 as, which is also known as the Silver Age, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
This Flash, in this instance of Flash, is known as Barry Allen. He got his super speed by getting struck by a bolt of lightning, which knocked him back into a cupboard, shelf, something of chemicals.
Container of variety. No, well,
it is a variety of containers, but it's a
container that contains a variety of containers.
Shelf. Let's go shelf. Into a shelf of chemicals, which gives him the connection to the Speed Force. Might want to mention that he is also, his day job, I guess, is a forensic scientist.
Now, you may be asking yourself, I thought the Flash just runs fast. What is Speed Force? And I will tell you. The Speed Force is kind of like, in a way, it's been described as a highway. But it's not a highway in the physical sense. It's more like, it's just a flow of energy. And when someone can tap into the Speed Force, they can use that energy to basically supercharge themselves. They can move, think, react, everything at the speed of light. They've got superhuman endurance to be able to
Which allows them to run within
forever.
Basically.
Almost. They, in some instances of the Flash...
Only some of them can. Like, Barry Allen is one of these. I don't think Wally West could do it.
No, there are particular instances where Barry Allen does not stop running. Also, there's that...
Okay, continue with your...
Speaking of only a few Flashes have been able to pull off the feat of quantum tunneling,
which is phasing through walls and other substances.
Well, kind of. It's vibrating the molecules in his body to the density of air, which allows him to pass through most, if not all, solid objects.
He also has the ability of time travel.
Kind of.
Technically.
He doesn't do it, because A, time travel is just a bad idea. Don't do it.
It depends on which direction you're traveling.
No. Time travel is always a bad idea.
They go back to the future.
Okay, I realize it is Back to the Future Day. To date this, it is the 21st of October, 2015. The day they go back to the future. Not the point. You don't time travel. There is no time travel ever because it's a bad idea.
Before I move on, before we move on to Flash's enemies that he has, Barry has gone back in time to some degree. He's gone
a few times.
Once was to save his mother, which we'll get into that later.
Let's save the confusing part for later.
It's probably the most confusing part of this episode.
It's absolutely
ridiculous. He's gone forward in time in order to chase the Reverse Flash, who Flash's evil counterpart has all of the abilities.
Not twin. Different person.
Has all of the abilities of the Flash, but instead of the Speed Force, he uses something called the Negative Speed Force, which siphons off of the Speed Force. I'll get more into that later.
Yeah.
But Barry has always had... He can do anything, pretty much, except if he goes back in time, he can't change things without causing the ripple effect and changing a whole bunch of other things.
Good old butterfly effect and the ripple effect and everything.
So anyway, Chris, would you like to start us off with some enemies?
Yes, I would love to, thank you. The first, the biggest, by no question, and maybe the meanest, is Gorilla Grodd. Gorilla Grodd is a very big, very angry, very smart gorilla.
He was created in the original comics, I think, because in Africa he was also actually a large herd of gorillas. Herd of gorillas?
I think it's technically a family.
A
A large group of gorillas.
A large group of gorillas were also struck by lightning in its sense. Not all at once, of course. It was just
one of them. I'll take this. Grodd himself was a normal gorilla, and then he kind of got struck by lightning. However, instead of
super speed,
it instead evolved his mind to a level beyond anyone.
Beyond anything. What he does after that, he decides to teach all the other gorillas in his herd, family, group, whatever you want to call it, and they create something known as Gorilla City.
And for some reason they get laser guns.
And flying vehicles.
Apparently, having an evolved brain lets you be able to make laser guns and flying vehicles in the middle of the African jungle.
And a force field which renders them completely invisible.
With no metal. It's amazing what you can do with some sticks and leaves.
And don't forget clay.
Yes, clay, of course. They're crafty, those gorillas.
Also, Grodd kind of has this weird ability that the Speed Force gave him, which was the ability of mind control. Also telepathy, I guess.
I'm not sure it's the Speed Force so much as the whole evolved mind thing.
Yeah.
He developed them on his own.
Yeah, he's the only gorilla who's able to do that.
Basically, he is Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Up next, we have the two captains on our list. Captain Cold.
It's the three-man squad. The captain squad, but only two of them are captains. But none of them are actual captains.
They're just called captains.
It sticks. They get called it and it sticks.
It's like Captain America.
Not officially a captain. Everyone calls him a captain.
Anyway, there's Captain Cold and Captain Boomerang. Captain Cold
has a cold gun. It shoots cold.
Which reaches temperatures of absolute zero.
Which is ridiculous. Science,
it's
impossible.
Almost impossible.
No,
it is impossible.
We have an issue. Anyway, basically, the idea behind the cold gun is...
It's Flash's weakness.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that could stop the Flash.
In theory. And most of the time in practice, it is the only thing that stops the Flash.
There's Captain Boomerang, he
throws boomerangs. Let's just get it out of the way. It is the most ridiculous thing ever. He throws boomerangs... somehow still thinks he can beat the Flash.
Well, they do explode and have this high polymer thing, which was meant put in
I don't think
Flashpoint.
you understand.
It was this really.
It's a
thing.
boomerang.
I know.
It is a thrown object against a man who thinks faster, reacts faster, and can move faster than light.
I forgot something. Before we move on, this is something that you guys might be wondering exactly how fast does the Flash move?
One more thing. Boomerang. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, well, in the comic, Superman actually asked Flash what he sees when he runs across the country. This was Flash's response. I can think at the speed of light. I can perceive events that last for less than an attosecond. I can run faster than time. What do I see when I run across the country, Superman? I see everything and everyone.
Which is really scary, but really awesome.
Now, for those of you who are not majors in science and do not know what a...
you don't need to be a major in science to know what an attosecond is. You just need to know what an attosecond is.
For those of you who don't know what an attosecond is 1 quintillionth of a second.
That's 1 to the negative
1 to the 6... No, it's 1 to the negative 8... Yeah, 1 to the negative 18th second.
Light travels at 3 trillion...
something like that.
I believe somewhere 300 billion, 3 trillion kilometers a second.
So...
In an attosecond, it moves basically the molecular equivalent of a few millimeters.
If you could perceive the world in that speed, even light would appear frozen to you. 1 attosecond is to a second what the size of an atom is to the size of an entire planet, times 100. If you were an immortal living in that time frame, you would live out the entire age of the universe in the time it would take. So, moving on to the next member of the Rogues.
And again, I have to say, boomerangs. Why? I just don't get it.
Next on the list is Heatwave, who
he works with Captain Cold, and he has a
opposite.
hot gun.
heat gun, hot gun, whatever, flamethrower that reaches temperatures of
Hot.
absolute hot, the hottest temperature you can reach, but it's a flamethrower.
Realistically. Except not realistically at all, because it doesn't have to be. He's not very complex. None of the captains are.
Not really. Next, we have Mirror Master, who
Is fun.
he's
I think my favorite Flash villain. Maybe.
besides Grodd.
I am partially right.
Anyway, Mirror Master has the ability to make mirror images of himself, basically like glass clones, which pack a punch. He can go into the dimension, one of the two.
I think it's more like we perceive the world in 3 dimensions, and he goes on a 4th dimensional axis or something like that. So it's basically
he can enter mirrors.
Yeah, he jumps in mirrors.
No matter how tiny the shard is, like no matter how small the mirror is. April, do you have a mirror?
We don't have a mirror.
Yeah.
Nope, we don't have a mirror.
No, sorry, no mirror.
Example, phone.
Yeah. So, any reflective surface, we should say. He could jump out of this, and then start attacking.
Conversely, he could jump in it.
Yeah, he can jump in it. There was one instance where Mirror Master pulled someone into the Mirrorverse, I'll call it that.
It's a good a name as any.
And Flash had to run in after him. And it was really weird. It had every mirror in existence.
It's a lot of mirrors.
All connected and everything. And it's
ridiculous.
Next.
Comic books.
Yeah, it's comic books. Next we have probably my favorite, Professor Zoom, also known as the Reverse Flash.
Wonder why it's your favorite.
Anyway, Reverse, I'm going to give a little bit of background on him. He is from the 25th century. His name is Eobard Thawne.
And he is crazy.
Obsessed with the Flash.
Crazy.
He is known as a genius in his time, so imagine what he'd be like in our time.
So it's like he walks up to Stephen Hawking and it's like, oh, it's adorable, you wrote a paper on black hole, let me just pin that on the fridge, that's cute.
Yeah.
He's kind of smart.
Kind of?
He's also crazy, fortunately, because if he wasn't crazy, he would have won a long time ago.
What happened, he has a huge obsession with the Flash. Yes, I've said that already, but
it's kind of ridiculous. Let's just move on.
So what he does is he recreates the accident, which gives Barry his powers, and in doing so, it kind of cuts his lifespan in half. He also made his own friction-proof suit, which made him. And then he went and got this kind of thing that's plastic surgery. I don't remember exactly what it's called. He made himself look exactly like Barry Allen. And then he broke into the Flash Museum, used the cosmic treadmill to run back in time to meet his hero. Something went wrong, like it always does.
The best laid plans.
And he ended up in a time after Barry Allen with Wally West. Chris, Wally West?
Wally West is a funny story to me.
He's Barry's nephew.
Barry's nephew by marriage, I believe. When he marries Iris West.
Spoilers.
Yeah, no.
Not really.
It's kind of a thing. In the comics, anyway.
Not so sure about the TV show yet.
It's getting there. Trust me.
Oh, it'll get there. Anyway, moving on.
Wally West. So, basically, the story is, like, he knows Barry's the Flash and everything, and Barry takes him into his lab. And somehow, by the magic of comic books, another lightning bolt strikes. Like, I swear, like, he didn't even move the shelf. It's the same spot. Hits Wally. Wally goes into the shelf.
There's only one difference. It gives Wally almost exactly the same powers. To an extent.
Not as fast.
He's not as fast, which means he can't time travel.
He is
the slowest. He is considered the slowest Flash out there.
Of the main ones, because there's a lot of like lesser Flashes and
such as Leah Nelson, Tanaka Ray. These are Flashes from different universes.
Different universes, different times, all sorts of whens and wheres.
Yeah.
But they're never the Flash for long.
Only Barry was the Flash for period of time. Wally became for a time known as Kid Flash. His original costume was just a shrunk down version of Barry's costume. Later changed to a yellow one.
Inverted.
Basically inverted, except the pants stayed red for some reason. I don't know. And he had goggles, and you could see his hair. Yeah. Then after Barry died...
It's comic books. We use the term dead loosely, unless referring to
Bruce
A.
Wayne's
Krypton,
Bruce Wayne's parents.
B. Bruce Wayne's parents, or C. Barry Allen's mom. Because Barry Allen's mom always has to die. And we'll get to that.
We'll explain that shortly. So, once Barry died, this is where Wally West and Eobard Thawne come in. Eobard comes back, and when he went back in time, it kind of broke his mind, even more so than it already was.
It was already pretty broken there. It splintered a little more.
It made himself think that he was in fact Barry Allen. So
delusional.
He got angry that he thought Central City had forgotten him because Wally West was the Flash in this case.
Just take some breaths. You got to recover here. You want me to take over?
No, I'm just the complexity of this.
And the stupidity.
And the stupidity.
Time travel.
Continue.
You want me to take over?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll take over the Flash Museum and everything.
So basically, I'll summarize, because if we don't summarize, we'll be here for more than a few days. Gets him in confrontation with Wally. Wally beats him, I believe,
by doing something. I read it somewhere.
Science.
Did something. But before that happened, I think he vibrated the molecules in his head, made him remember who he was, and it kind of made him lose his speed.
He kind of made him forget about what happened and sent him back to the future.
But before that,
because I couldn't resist making the joke one more time.
What broke his mind even further, Eobard's that is he saw himself in the Flash Museum as the Flash's, Barry Allen's greatest enemy. It's
a wonderful paradox of he sees himself
as Flash's
greatest enemy,
causing him to become Flash's greatest enemy.
Which makes him go back in time and become Flash's greatest enemy.
Which we'll explain more into when we get into the Flashpoint.
Which will be coming up soon.
So after Wally sends him back to the future, once more time, Barry, he became a super criminal known as the Professor. Basically, super genius, and does a bunch of high-tech crimes. Then he later discovers a time capsule. I will continue saying it like that. You can continue. You can say it however you want. Okay. Time capsule. He discovers a time capsule which has Barry's suit in it. So what he does is he uses his vast knowledge of science to siphon off this residual energy of the Speed Force on the costume.
Because it clings like wine stains apparently.
And this creates the negative Speed Force. And he only gets Barry's abilities when he puts on the costume. Yeah. Which is a fact actually very little known.
Yeah.
So then he becomes Professor Zoom. Goes back in time, meets Barry out. This is where we're getting into the Flashpoint.
Yes, this will be.
But before that, actually, should we touch on the TV show? Because I kind of want to end with the Flashpoint.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about it. So right now it's in its second season.
On the third episode, I think.
The third episode actually just aired yesterday.
For us.
For us, anyway.
Basically, in that, Barry got his power.
Minor spoiler alert we might go into. So Barry Allen becomes the Flash
via
due to an
particle accelerator explosion.
Yeah. An accident. Giant air quotes, disclaimer, accident.
It creates a storm cloud, which creates a lightning bolt, which strikes Barry Allen, knocking him into the chemical shelf as before, but it puts him into a coma for 9 months.
Yeah.
And creates all of the other metahumans, including Gorilla Grodd.
Well, I wouldn't call Gorilla Grodd a metahuman.
But ape.
Villain. It basically creates all of his villains, except for the ones like Captain Cold, Captain Boomerang, and Heatwave.
Those are just guns and boomerangs.
Yeah, which they're still deadly without them, but...
Technically, Captain Boomerang is an arrow villain, but they mix a lot. Anyway,
There's not really a lot to cover in the TV series without spoiling it.
yeah, we don't want to spoil anything, but back to the Flashpoint paradox.
Oh, this is gonna be a
Eobard, after becoming the Professor Zoom and doing whatever it is he does in the future...
Fighting Barry for a while. This is a while after fighting Barry.
No, this is after fighting Wally and becoming the Professor. He just now became Reverse Flash. Goes back in time, meets Barry Allen for the very first time.
Yeah.
Then those two fight. Barry actually gets mad at Eobard for killing his mother.
Yeah.
Eobard, the Professor, I'll just call him, was like, huh, so I did that. So he goes back in time
To do it.
to kill Barry's mom. Then goes back to the future again.
It's just easy, and we have to say it.
Otherwise, it wouldn't
Otherwise,
it wouldn't make sense. And then he starts gloating that he killed Barry's mother. This is the second time that I'm just assuming that he gloated. That's how Barry found out.
Oh no, I'm sure he did because villains are stupid.
And he's kind of insane.
Very, not kind of.
He taunts Barry about
Killing his mom. Barry gets angry.
Barry gets angry. Then that happens. Then after, actually, the first time, it's time travel. Everything's out of order. After Eobard met him for the very first time, he goes, to the time where Barry technically first saw him. Actually, did he see him when he was a kid? No, I don't think he did see him when he was a kid.
No.
In the TV show he did, but no.
Yeah, in the show he sees it happen, kind of. But in the comics he doesn't really know what happened. He was away at school, I believe.
He was running home and his mom was found dead.
He was running home and he found his mom dead, and he always thought maybe if I had been faster,
he would have been.
Which is what eventually leads him to become the Flash. Now, there's an issue, which if you don't mind me taking over for a bit, there's an issue and it's why it's called the Flashpoint paradox, because the Reverse Flash travels back in time to kill his mother.
I was going to get into that, what creates the Flashpoint paradox after I get to the point where Flashpoint begins.
Well,
because it happens.
Yeah, but you can kind of pick it up from anywhere because it all leads into itself.
It does, but after Eobard kills his mom, and it's after the first encounter that Eobard has. Basically, Eobard tries to blow up Central City with a bunch of bombs using the Rogues, which we've been over a few of them.
Basically, all of his villains except Grodd are referred to as the Rogues.
I think Trickster's in the top, but that's besides the point. After Barry beats him, Flash is being all triumphant, and then the Professor's like, "You can't save everyone, so now you can take over."
Okay. Well, he does save everyone. And that's the problem.
At a cost.
Yeah. I guess it's like during the whole explosion deal, he runs and he actually goes back in time to the day/night if we're going by the show, but it was daytime in the comics when his mother died, and he stops Eobard from killing her, and goes back to the future.
Back to the present. It creates a parallel universe.
Well, it not so much creates, it shatters the timeline and sends it in a new direction. Now, the thing about time travel, as we mentioned earlier, is there's ripples. So only with Barry.
Professor Zoom, doesn't have.
He exists outside time.
Technically, at this point, he does because of what Barry did. So after shattering time itself and splintering off into a completely different time stream where Barry's mom is alive, Barry never became the Flash, but he still is a forensic scientist. He went to the military, became a forensic scientist after that.
Now, the thing about this is it caused a bunch of ripples. So, for example, instead of a spacecraft landing in the fields of Kansas, it lands in the middle of Metropolis and gets taken in by the military.
Millions of people.
Yeah.
So,
the military takes it. And Superman grows up under red sun radiation.
And never gets to... No, it's not necessarily... He was never under red sun radiation. He just never got to see the light.
Oh, yeah, well, no, he never received yellow sunlight.
So as you can imagine, he was super malnourished, everything.
He was like the tiniest weakling ever, except he still had the powers of Superman.
Once he saw the sun.
Once he got the sun.
Instead of Bruce Wayne dying, instead of Thomas and Martha Wayne dying, Bruce Wayne was killed. Thomas became the Batman, and Martha became the Joker, which I actually found really cool.
It would have been cool, except Thomas Wayne is not a cool Batman. I'm sorry.
He's not a cool Batman, but...
Because he doesn't have a Batmobile, he has like a normal car that he drives around.
Also, in the movie, the Flashpoint Paradox actually is what it's called, while the comic is called the Flashpoint. But for the sake, we'll just call it the Flashpoint Paradox, because it is. I'm rambling. Anyway, in the movie he used guns, but in the comic he actually didn't.
That is weird.
I don't know. I guess they wanted to separate it, but
I guess
if you want to imagine what Thomas Wayne as Batman looked like, we'll have April pull up a shot of it as we're talking about it.
Because we have to leave notes somewhere to remind her.
But instead of the white eyes, which Batman is basically known for, they're bright red. The small circle is, I'm pointing to my shirt because it's on there. Is red instead of the common yellow, and the bat is actually like bigger like this. So it's out, like circles, it's weird. And he has these two little weird points. So he's like a devil, if you want to think about that.
It's like Devil Batman.
So Barry...
All of this happens. Barry is technically the only person in the timeline that knows the timeline is different.
He is well, besides Eobard, but that...
Yes, besides the Professor, but the Professor is a part of it and isn't a part of it.
Barry is convinced, once he realizes that he isn't the Flash, he's convinced that Eobard messed with the time stream. I almost said tam stream.
In fact, different type of stream. The funny thing is, he didn't.
So
Barry did.
We'll get to that too. Once that happens, Barry does the first thing that he knows, goes to Batman, who he thinks is Bruce Wayne.
Is not in fact Bruce Wayne. He is unfortunately surprised to find it is Thomas Wayne. However, it's still Batman. Batman is Batman. So he still helps him. So he straps himself to a chair.
Gets struck by lightning again.
With a bunch of chemicals on the back, and sits in a thunderstorm and gets struck by lightning. And the first time, it doesn't work.
Sets him on fire.
Sets him on fire, burns all his skin off.
Third degree burns
everywhere. He gets back in the chair. Because he
After waking up a few hours later, and Batman's just like, dude.
Batman won't let him do it.
And he's just like, I
ignores Batman.
to do this. So then this time, what happens?
It works.
It does work, but what happens is, something goes wrong, and one of the cords snaps.
Ironically, in trying to recreate the accident, they have an accident that causes the success of the original accident. Batman
dives towards the cords the cables in order to put them back together and fix it. As Barry gets hit by lightning, creating an explosion which knocks Bruce off the balcony onto...
Thomas.
Yeah,
Not Bruce.
Batman, Thomas. Off the balcony towards the spiked fence in his yard.
And then Barry saves him. Mm-hmm. Because it's what Barry does. Barry helps people. He can't help it. We're just being pressured because someone's pushing.
Of course, she should know that it doesn't matter so long as we reach the minimum time limit. Which
Crisis on Infinite Films.
Anyway. Okay.
So he gets his speed back and he goes to fix it to stop.
He goes to London, which is currently known as New Themyscira, because for one tiny detail we kind of forgot to mention.
There's a little bit of a war.
World War III, to be exact, between the Atlanteans.
Between Atlantis, the Amazons, and the rest of the Earth.
Yeah. Also,
translation: the Amazons.
Aquaman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah. No. Translation: World War III. The Amazons, the Atlanteans, and the rest of the Earth trying to stay out of the way.
Which doesn't work.
Doesn't.
Anyway, anyway, Aquaman captures...
Aquaman and Wonder Woman hate each other. Because reasons.
Love affair, basically.
Because reasons, more or less.
he captures Captain Atom and plans to use him as a time bomb, basically. So
Which is all sorts of bad ideas.
Barry and Batman get a small Justice League together, which consists of Superman for a short time frame after they free him from the
Tiny
internet.
Superman, kind of, yeah.
Malnourished Superman. Cyborg, and the 5 Shazam kids, instead of just Billy.
Yeah, in this timeline, instead of just one kid, there's 5 kids that
Each
form
represent a different...
weird Voltron Shazam thing. Still Shazam.
Obscure reference, though.
Still Shazam, but it's 5 people instead of 1.
So they all use Batman's private jet. Oh, also, Thomas owns a casino.
Because, why not? Like, I mean, he's still the head of Wayne Enterprises.
Which kind of
they
exist.
kind of own Gotham. It kind of owned Gotham.
For a time before that happened.
Everything bad happened.
So they all take the private jet to London, or New Themyscira, whatever you want to call it, where the rest of the rebellion is going on and World War III is happening. Aquaman and Wonder Woman dish it out. Everything just starts happening. It's a big war. Barry meets up
Barry's
with the professor.
Like, oh, wait.
I have a job to do.
Yeah, and I'm surprised he managed to tear himself away from the fighting. He's like the biggest sympathetic person in the multiverse.
He can't not help people.
It's true. He can't. He tried, I think, and he...
Well, he has to not help one person, but...
Well, yeah. And then he meets up with the professor, and the professor tells him he didn't do anything.
But Barry, of course, doesn't believe him, so...
I mean, I can understand this response. It's a bad guy, and he's telling you something, and you're like, I don't believe you.
So what Eobard does, he kind of vibrates his hand into Barry's head, and being a speedster...
Just all sorts of weird.
Being a speedster with this rapid healing thing, he can withstand this. He jogs his memory, basically. Barry,
for lack of better terms, literally jogs his memory.
Barry remembers running back in time and saving his mom.
Yeah. So, in the weirdest...
twist of...
well, not even twist, but in the weirdest literal sense of you have to face yourself, Barry has to face himself.
But he can't, because Eobard is holding all the Speed Force.
Yeah.
He's keeping it from Barry. So those two fight. Barry is being badly beaten. He gets a lead pipe shoved through his leg.
Generally the signs of a bad day.
And then Batman has been taken down because he was stabbed. Then
a problem even the normal Batman has.
Several times.
Randomly getting shanked.
So everyone thinks that he's dead. And then as Barry's lying there on the ground, explaining that he can finally kill Barry because he doesn't care anymore. Because there's one thing that Eobard could never do.
Kill the Flash.
Because without the Flash, he could never exist.
Yeah, it's the only thing tying him to time and space is the Flash, and if his greatest desire is to kill the Flash, but he can't kill the Flash.
Yeah.
So,
but in this
Greek
sense
mythology
that
stuff
he
going
can because he was in the time stream when Barry did that.
Yeah.
To putting him outside of time. So, as he's standing there explaining that, Batman, of course, is still alive. Picks up one of the swords. This is a huge spoiler, by the way. Picks up one of the swords, stabs him, and says probably the greatest line ever. He says, "Rule 1 of war. Never stand still in a war." And then he's like, "Give this letter to my son."
Yeah.
And go stop this from happening.
Barry before had told him, like in his timeline, Bruce became Batman. So Thomas Wayne writes a letter to Bruce. We don't actually know what it says. It never said. No idea what it says. But it makes him cry, so it had to have like the strongest feelings of all in there.
It made
because
Batman
one
cry.
does not simply make Batman cry easily.
So anyway, Barry, completely unsure of himself, does the first thing any child who he's technically still a child in his head. Well, because he's kind of just got his mom back.
He runs because he's the Flash.
He goes back to his mom.
Yeah.
Explains exactly what he has to do, what he needs to do. She says, "Well, do what you did before. Run to me." Because he didn't have... Before, he used the cosmic treadmill.
Yeah.
Which doesn't exist. So his mom, Nora, gives the greatest... So it's just like, "Well, do it. Just run to me." So he was like...
He finally figured out what he did.
He just ran.
So
while Captain Atom, after the Captain Atom had exploded exploded, gone nuclear, whatever you want to call
Made
it.
general bad happenings.
Destroying of world. He starts running, enters the Speed Force, meets himself.
He then fights himself.
He meets himself chasing after Eobard. Fights himself to stop himself. He stops himself from stopping Eobard from killing his mom.
This is why we saved it for the end.
But in doing so, he fused all of the
There's
universes together, creating
The new timeline.
the new 52.
Yeah, because DC likes the number 52.
And, well, they kind of, when in doubt, whenever DC needs a, restart on the
A
universe.
Whenever they need to
Retcon the universe.
fix their mistakes, they're just like, okay, the Flash runs and breaks space-time and it all resets.
Because everyone knows, well, not everyone, I guess. Whenever there's something wrong where it's an alternate universe or anything, Flash has to do something.
Yeah.
It's either caused by the Flash or Flash has to fix it. So
Usually both.
this creates the new 52 timeline, which kind of undoes a bunch of deaths, except for, of course, for Barry's mom.
Barry's mom, Bruce Wayne's parents, and Krypton.
And, well,
I mean, that's just about it.
it's everything.
Basic course. I say basic, of course. Basic. Yeah,
Basic is
took
this
forever.
this is the simplest.
The simplest version of the Flash. There's multiple Flashes. There's a Flash before Barry.
There's 2 Flashes after him
Yeah.
who took the mantle of the Flash.
There's a few after him. There's a whole lot more stuff. I would recommend
This is the
researching on
This
it.
is just
Yeah.
the simplest way we could have explained
The
it. As you
simplest
can see,
version.
there's still a whole lot left.
Yeah. We didn't go over all the villains. There's some really great ones and really stupid ones. But that'll do.
So I guess we'll see you next time. Who are we talking about next time?
I
Batman
believe it
or
was Green
Batman
Arrow.
or Green Arrow? Was it
Green Arrow.
Green Arrow? Okay. So bye.
Best outro ever.
Just bye.
I found the quality.